The Texas Chainsaw Massacre wasn't just another scary movie, it was a low-budget nightmare that looked so real people thought it actually happened. On screen, you saw a sweaty Texas farmhouse, a buzzing chainsaw, and a masked killer chasing his victims. But behind the camera, things were just as insane. The idea came from a crowded Christmas shopping trip. The cast worked in 100-degree heat wearing the same dirty clothes for weeks, and the film ended up banned in several countries. These are 10 creepiest facts about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And hidden in its story is the shocking truth that the movie was banned for years just because of its title. Number 1, the Christmas shopping spark. Believe it or not, the idea for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre started in the middle of Christmas shopping. Back in 1972, director Tobe Hooper was stuck in a crowded department store. Annoyed by the long lines and people pushing past him, while looking around, his eyes landed on a display of chainsaws. For a second, he thought, if I had one of those, I could cut right through this crowd. That disturbing thought stuck in his head. By the time he got home, he started shaping a story about stranded friends, a creepy hitchhiker, and a dinner scene no one would ever forget, all from a stressful holiday shopping trip. Number 2, the casting disaster. Casting Leatherface wasn't simple. At first, another actor was chosen, but he ended up quitting in dramatic fashion. He got drunk, locked himself in a hotel room, and refused to come out. That left the crew scrambling to find a replacement. Luckily, a tall graduate student named Gunnar Hansen stepped in. He wasn't just physically imposing, he also decided to play Leatherface as someone who couldn't speak and had the mind of a child. To prepare, he visited mental hospitals to study mannerisms and even copied the squeals of pigs. His take on Leatherface gave the character a terrifying and unforgettable presence. Number 3, the brutal heat and clothes. Filming in Texas during the summer was pure torture. The cast and crew worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, in temperatures that often passed 100 degrees. Because of the tiny budget, the actors weren't given extra costumes and they weren't allowed to wash the ones they had. That meant weeks of sweating in the same dirty clothes under the hot Texas sun. The smell was so bad that people still remember it decades later. What you see on screen, the exhaustion, the sweat, the tension, was painfully real. Number 4, the farmhouse of horrors. If the heat wasn't bad enough, the farmhouse where most of the movie was shot made things even worse. To make the place look horrifying, the crew decorated it with animal bones, blood from a slaughterhouse, and even roadkill they found on the side of the highway. With no air conditioning or ventilation, the stench of rot mixed with the heat until it was unbearable. Actors and crew would rush to the windows between takes, just to vomit or catch a quick breath of fresh air. Watching the farmhouse scenes is disturbing enough, but filming them was a nightmare of its own. Number 5, the infamous dinner scene. One of the most disturbing moments in the film is the dinner scene, where Sally is tied up at the table with Leatherface and his twisted family. Filming that scene was just as chaotic as it looked. Because the actor playing Grandpa refused to spend another 10 hours in the makeup chair, they had to shoot everything in one marathon session, 27 hours straight. The heat, the smell, and the exhaustion pushed everyone to the edge. To make matters worse, when the fake blood pump failed, Gunnar Hansen actually cut Marilyn Burns's finger for real. She was bleeding on camera and Grandpa was really drinking it. No wonder the cast avoided Hansen off set. Number 6, censorship and bans. When Hooper finished the film, he actually hoped it would get a PG rating because most of the violence was implied rather than shown. Instead, the opposite happened. The movie was slapped with an X rating at first and was banned outright in multiple countries. In the United Kingdom, the ban lasted until 1998, more than 2 decades. In Australia, it wasn't screened until a full 10 years after its release. Even in places where it was shown, people fainted, vomited, or stormed out of theaters. The fact that it opened with a fake true story disclaimer only made audiences believe it was real. Number 7. The cast barely got paid. For all the blood, sweat, and injuries that went into making the movie, the actors ended up with almost nothing. Because of messy contracts, shady distributors, and lawsuits, the original cast and crew received paychecks as low as $28. Some waited nearly a year for even that small amount. Imagine going through unbearable heat, dangerous stunts, and sleepless nights, only to walk away broke. It was a bitter ending for the people who brought Leatherface to life, even as the film went on to make millions at the box office. Number 8. Leatherface almost started as a troll. The movie we know today wasn't always about Leatherface and his family. Hooper's early idea was closer to a twisted fairy tale, a story about trolls under a bridge, mixed with the real-life crimes of Ed Gein. Things changed when one of Hooper's friends, a medical student, told him about making a mask out of a cadaver's face during class. Instead of being horrified, Hooper had another spark. What if his villain wore masks made from people's skin? He imagined a character with different masks for different moods. That's how the chainsaw-wielding Leatherface was born, and horror cinema would never be the same. Number 9. The original title was Head Cheese. Before the movie was called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it had a much stranger title, Head Cheese. That's actually the name of a type of cold-cut meat, but most people who heard it thought it sounded disgusting or confusing. At one point, the film was even called Leatherface, but it didn't stick. Finally, just a week before filming, someone suggested The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The blunt, brutal title worked instantly. It was shocking, easy to remember, and guaranteed to get people talking. Number 10. Real-world influences. The script wasn't only inspired by Ed Gein's crimes. Hooper and co-writer Kim Henkel also pulled from the world around them. The Vietnam War, the Watergate scandal, and the violent news coverage of the time gave the film its gritty, hopeless atmosphere. Hooper said he wanted to show how people had become numb to violence, and that maybe the real monsters were just people wearing different faces. That's why Leatherface literally wears masks. It was more than a slasher story, it was a reflection of a broken society. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre may look like a chaotic, low-budget horror film, but its story runs much deeper. From a random spark during Christmas shopping, to unbearable filming conditions, censorship battles, and actors who were barely paid, the chaos behind the camera was just as wild as what audiences saw on screen. What started as a tiny project became one of the most banned, controversial, and influential horror movies of all time. Maybe that's why it still holds its power today. Because it didn't just show monsters, it reminded us how cruel the real world can be. So next time you hear that buzzing sound in the distance, remember, sometimes the scariest thing isn't the mask. It's the person holding the saw. Thank you for watching.